Hello, everybody. Welcome to Punch Up Pod's Sunday night show, the shit show.
On the holy day.
On this 3-weekend
Shit
holiday,
show.
you said?
Oh, yeah. No, the holy day, Sunday.
Oh, on the holy day. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
God's day, the Lord's day, the day of rest.
Right? I forgot it was a holiday. Completely forgot, and which worked out because I'm going to do some work on Monday. Side work.
Doesn't feel like that's a holiday for you then, Pat.
I mean, it isn't, but what am I going to do? Go to the clubs? I mean, I don't know.
You could just, what is, it's Memorial Day.
Yeah. Which is what? What are we celebrating on Memorial Day? Exactly.
I mean, the people.
The 4th of July is coming? Is that
die for our oil?
Yeah.
Hegemony. Thank you for your service. I don't know. It's pretty bleak. Yeah, it's a holiday weekend. Hello, everybody. We've got Kim. Hello. Yes, Mr. Burns and Pete Buttigieg. Listen, we both did it at the same time. Every time Pete Buttigieg makes an appearance, it sends me like, both ways. I do a complete 180. Like, I cannot stand him pretty much as I can't stand Hillary. And it's always funny to bag on him. So I don't know. It's like a lose-win, win-lose.
But the beauty to me is that he was put in this cushy spot because it was like, your resume is going to get boosted. You can't fuck up this job. And every time he's on TV, it's because there's a disaster.
I mean, every time. Yeah. Today,
he's not
I don't know why you saw that he was apparently, Fox is upset that he is blaming Fox News, right-wing media, the RNC, blaming climate change for the turbulence that I know people were hurt, and I don't think anybody was killed, but there might have been one person. Do you know if anybody was killed?
I don't.
Okay.
Anyone?
Yeah. So I don't want to speak out of turn over here, but there was turbulence, and it was over Australia. I'm going to get everything wrong. There was a flight turbulence. People who were not strapped, seatbelted in, were flung all over the place, and people did get hurt. And I am so sorry if somebody also passed away. I mean, there's so many issues, because even if he wants to blame climate change, he could be doing a lot more to help us with all of the infrastructure effects that climate change has had on our country. So,
and obviously, we've got it all started with the train wreck in East Palestine, and downhill from there. And we got Boeing. We got this is breaking news from a couple of days ago.
Yep.
300 Boeing planes used by United and America Airlines have potentially fatal fault that could cause jets to explode midair.
I mean,
nothing big, though.
Nothing, no big deal. No regulations are needed. They're going to investigate themselves, just like Israel's going to investigate what's going on with the mic. We're both multitasking over here, and now we're reading the side things. Can you all hear, Pat?
Is it not loud? It says it's going through my Yeti.
All right.
Is it not loud enough?
I hear you fine, but I don't know. So anyway, whatever we do, has anybody done anything to help people in East Palestine? Has anybody been, fined for destroying all of those people's lives, cancer, rashes, sicknesses, like all that kind of stuff? No, he's done absolutely nothing. So even though it's not the volume, it's the quality, says Viola.
Is it any better now? Any better? Bueller?
Anyone? Kim Crawley just wrote about the tweet that I had just sent to you. The response, I'm sure I can't see what you're sending. I don't know if you posted an attachment, but if it's the one that I just saw that I just texted to Pat, listen, it just feels so terrible to have to criticize. Sounds like a raspy baseball announcer. It's just because of all your cigarettes, huh?
It's the cigarettes that I don't smoke.
No, he doesn't smoke. I don't know. I'm not hearing that. I don't know what to do to help you.
I really don't know either, unfortunately. Some people say it's fine. Some people say it's a problem.
We're going to plow through and hope that...
What I'll do is, as soon as we play some sort of video or something, I'll unplug and plug my mic back in and check all the connections. But
anyway, so the thing with the David Sirota is he wrote today, and again, like I really respect him. I like him so much. That's always where the but is about to come in. I have not really heard him talking about COVID at all, or the government's just, letting that all go.
yeah.
And so he wrote a post today saying, sick in bed with COVID, not feeling great. Anybody have suggestions on what I should watch? And a COVID, conscientious person who probably we're all mutuals with responded, hey, you should watch Don't Look Up about, when journalists ignore major issues happening, like basically poking fun at him for like, you've not ever commented on COVID as an ongoing pandemic. And it is hard not to agree with that because.
Yeah. So on that, I will say this. So he went on a blocking spree, and this is the second time, well, at least the second time he's gone on a mass blocking spree, as Cloudy Skies Now says. But in his defense, his blocking spree came from, this is not a good defense, but his group, what's his news media?
The Lever.
The Lever actually has covered COVID a little bit. So,
okay.
They have a little bit. And so his defense was, well, if you're going to attack me, it's like he was seeing it as bad faith attacks.
Right.
But at the same time, just the fact that you have one article and one story hidden among all the things you cover, and you're not giving the weight of COVID responsible response it goes with his movie. It's like he's basically undermining COVID by not covering it enough. So he did go on a blocking spree about it, but that was his response to it.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I don't know how many people, anyway, I'm not going to make excuses. Anyway, yes, I did see that. I wish everybody talked about COVID a bit. I am Josh and I are really the only people I ever see wearing a mask anymore. I mean, it's just unbelievable as we now see that like infection rates are climbing again, and the forecast is not looking great for this
calls
summer.
For bird flu. Bird flu is coming.
Yeah. Anyway, so yes, it's that is very frustrating.
Yeah, and he also, his first blocking came when he went to work for a terrible organization. Remember when he left and he went for a brief time to work for God, my brain is such mush today. I swear, maybe I did have COVID. I don't know.
TYT? No.
No. He was working for the shitlib organization we attack everybody that goes to work for. He worked for them. He worked for CAP, yes.
But that was like 20 years ago, right?
No. He left it was like 4 years ago. He did a little stint at CAP.
Really?
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was like, yeah, he went.
Yeah. He went the way of Mayor Tannen?
But he only went there. He's like, I'm blocking everybody. He went there for like 6 months and then went back, and then that's when he ended up starting his own media company.
Yeah. I don't block anybody unless I think they're trying to get my account taken down. Like, I just don't care enough to block. I don't know. Like, stop reading what people are writing about you.
Yeah, he's very sensitive. And to be in his position, it's kind of silly. Like, I'll block a lot of these COVID people, a lot of, just people that I think are paid accounts or likely to be paid, because it makes it harder for them. It makes their propaganda less effective.
Yeah.
And if you're going to swarm me with a bunch of door opinions, and the door people are going to come around, what's the point? You're not going to debate your way. So I just, in that case, I block it. I don't feel bad about it. I've been on Twitter too long to give a shit. Like, don't call me wimpy or whatever.
I agree. I just think, especially for a journalist, I don't know. I just feel like just move on. Like, you've got so many just keep going. Keep going. But I hear what you're saying.
But I do feel like, as a journalist with a big organization, he should have thicker skin and just go past it, Like,
I mean, because
he truly caught up a lot of legitimate allies on most issues and blocked them all. Like, real people. Like,
I agree. I mean, like there's somebody that's like data analyst who I used to retweet all the time. He's a COVID. I don't even know if he's still on because he blocked me. And then I was kind of like, all right. But I think I just got swept up. Like what you're saying, I probably liked some. I mean, I think he was like a big Ukraine person. So maybe that's why. I don't know. Anyway, who cares? It's all so boring. But yeah, don't get COVID. Okay. We forgot to do this on Wednesday, so we always want to make sure that we give a big shout out and thank you to all of our wonderful pup heroes and sheroes. You guys are amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We are so grateful, and thank you. And now I'm going to do the next part, which, you know, is always sort of embarrassing. Please make sure to like and subscribe, smash that notification bell. It helps the algorithm, I guess. So please, if you're able, do. Thank you. Do you love that, Pat? Don't you wish that was your job?
No, I'm going to at least change the language of that to something funny or something, because
you didn't think that was funny? I came up with that myself.
No, it's just the cornballness of podcasting in general is just too much for me.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yes, look at that. You got it. Yeah, you got it. You got to pitch. You got to do your own pitching. We're wearing many hats. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So we wanted to start off with our cheers, right?
Yeah, cheers. Absolutely. There's a lot to cheer for. It's hard to find, but
yeah,
there are, you know, at this point, it's mostly we're cheering for people fighting at this, like, we don't have any wins to cheer for. Right, that's the hard part to find.
We can't fight. We can't cheer the result of anything yet, but we're cheering the process of, you know, it's like, what does Chris Hedges say? Like, I don't fight fascism because I think I'm going to win. I fight it because it's fascism. Like, you just have to fight. So I guess on the 23rd or 24th, Donald Trump had a huge rally in the Bronx, which they say was like 20,000 people. But from what I've seen, when I see the aerial footage, it's a pretty weak looking crowd, especially for what we've been used to with him. That said, I will say that I've read quite a few reports from, you know, like either liberal or lefty journalists who were there who said, you know, liberals and Democrats should not fool themselves that this is not still a movement. Like, there was a lot of excitement in the crowd. He felt completely on his game. You know, he's not, whatever you think about his mental state, there's not a huge shift because of age. He's just, you know, a narcissist psycho. But
let's say there were 10,000 people there or 5,000.
Right.
You think Biden can pull 5 or 10,000 people there?
Oh my God.
No. And do you think he could sustain regularly campaigning? No. It's his campaign is going to be the most highly controlled, you know, question.
He's not going to do a single rally.
No, and he's going to do, his interviews will all have clips where they cut him because he said something stupid or he looked too slow. Or it's going to be
like six chairs in a high school gymnasium or something.
Yeah. I mean, it was like that last time. And and people didn't know he was this bad last time.
Yeah. So anyway, there were counter protesters, you know, on the outskirts of the rally. And it turns out there are a couple things that bring all of us together. So cheers to these people fighting the good fight.
Amen.
They don't give a fuck about you. Fuck Trump. Fuck Biden too. They don't give a fuck about you. Fuck Trump. Fuck Trump. Fuck Biden too. They don't give a fuck about you. Fuck Trump. Fuck Trump. Fuck Biden too. They don't give a fuck about you. Fuck Trump. Fuck Biden too. They don't give a fuck about you. Fuck Trump. Fuck Biden too. They don't give a fuck about you. Fuck Trump.
All right. We caught you making the sausage. You looking at your thing.
I'm trying to fix it. Is it better yet? Is it a massive?
That actually does sound better to me. A little bit.
We'll just pretend it is then.
Cheers to that crew who knows that the people in power do not give a single fuck about any of us. Cheers.
A to the men.
Much better. They're saying much better. Look at that.
Oh, okay, good. Good.
All right. So what do you think? Do we start on a little something light before we get, I mean, this isn't going to be like a super heavy show, even though these people at McKinsey and all of these consulting firms are destroying the world. But do you want to start with what? Just a little?
Yeah, we might as well just get some pets out there to give us some time.
That's your favorite. God, I hope there's not some wonderful music that we're going to have to cut.
They keep copywriting striking us left and right. But here's a little something. And this is wholesome.
Ei, pessoal, você já ouviu falar do coelho gigante de Flandres? Olha ele aqui.
Oh, background music. Did I miss it?
Oh, you screwed me. That was very cute. I think we're going to get dinged on the police. There was just like, there was one measure. I just heard it.
Catch it the first time I watched it. Damn.
Oz, thank you. Cheers to you and the mic and all of our hearing. Thank you.
Much appreciated.
That's very funny. Yep. I'm going to have to cut out that little measure. All right. So should we just get started on what we're talking about? I think, yeah.
Let's do it.
Okay.
I don't believe you. I don't believe you. I don't believe you.
I forgot we had an intro, even though you had just reminded me right before we went on.
You will never remember. We need to just start stitching it into the videos. So just
yeah. You know, I did know about McKinsey for a while because, you know, that's the Ivy League, is you see people love to go off to be consultants at McKinsey. Right. And part of the joke, and we'll see this many times, is that nobody knows what the hell they really do. Mostly, I think, because they're not allowed to say. There's a lot of secrecy. True. But one thing I did think was funny, and we're going to get to the video that More Perfect Union just put out, is that I was looking for, you know, all the corporate speak, because that's, you know, they come up with all different ways of how you manage your clients and ways to phrase things and frame. And so apparently, and I thought this was a joke, but the World Economic Forum actually came out with like the top phrases that are most annoying and least annoying, but these are, you know, completely not manufactured. Obviously, most of these were words before, but just putting it together in a way, you know, it's like, I'm going to have to go ahead and ask you to come in on Saturday or whatever, you know, it's like office speak. But one of the things is deep dive. Is it there? Because it was on another one, deep dive. Oh, it's not even there. Oh,
was it there?
So funny. There was another one that had, I just thought this was more fun because it was from the actual World Economic Forum, which is
that's
just
a good idea.
Funny.
Well, I'll make us a new segment called Circle Back.
Yeah, we'll circle back.
You can go back.
Anything that Jen Psaki's ever said comes from a corporate, you know, consulting boardroom where they come up with ways to get what you want, but phrase it in a nice way and put a pin in it.
I was in management for a while at Earthlink, internet company, and we all sides of it. The corporate speak was ridiculous. The cheerleading by management for the slave labor, basically the people making, you know, crappy wages. But the worst was the consultants. We would get, you know, what happens is these bosses are looking for some way to justify their big paycheck.
Yes.
And so they get some money to distribute to people, and they'll give these consultant groups like $200,000 to go around the company and put on like a 10-minute PowerPoint presentation to employees on a new way to sell or something.
Yeah.
But they never understand the job well enough to actually provide information that's useful. And it's usually detrimental. And so as a sales manager, I would have to come and teach my employees this new thing that we all knew sucked and wasn't going to work. And then 2 months later, I'd have to come in and say, we're not doing it that way anymore.
Right.
And then I'd look at the paycheck and those consultants got like 200 grand for that thing they just did here. They spent like a week at our company and they got $200,000.
That is
Are you
amazing.
shitting me?
Because you know what happens is, like every business, it's so conservative and nobody wants to get blamed. And you're never going to get blamed for hiring McKinsey or Bain Capital or the Boston Group, whatever that other one is.
Right.
So because it means it's like why they only make remakes and IP and, you know, Marvel movies anymore, right? Like you can't really get blamed for making a Marvel movie, even if it sucked. At least you're trying to do the thing that we all know should be getting us money, right? So like it's all that. It's just,
right. And another part of it, I mean, the biggest part is that they use these consultant groups like McKinsey to justify layoffs and measures that they put in place that are bad for employees. And that's their main purpose, is finding cost savings in businesses.
cost savings.
And they always come at the backs of the regular workers.
100%. While they're making their high six-figure salaries right out of college. Okay, so should we just start? And
yeah, and we want to say thanks to More Perfect Union.
yeah,
They are putting out a lot of stuff about strikes and whatnot on a regular basis, and they're doing work we need to see more of. So,
am I putting this up? Yes.
sure.
Okay.
Entering the global headquarters of one of the most influential companies in the world. But you probably wouldn't know that because hiding in plain sight is kind of their thing. And from the shadows, they've been doing the dirty work for basically every brand you've ever heard of. Like 450 of the Fortune 500 companies. I'm talking big soda, big tobacco, big oil, and the very worst of big pharma. They've been called the single greatest legitimizer of mass layoffs of anyone, anywhere, at any time in modern history. They also work for the Saudi, Chinese, and American governments, and on whatever the hell this is.
The line will be home to 9 million residents and organized in 3 dimensions.
The line.
So who are they?
McKinsey's now accused of helping drug makers to, quote-unquote, turbocharge the sales of prescription opioids.
Behind President Vladimir Putin's war machine against Ukraine sits Rostec, until recently a client of McKinsey and Company.
You worked for a company that was fixing bread prices?
No. I worked for a consulting company that had a client that may have been involved in fixing, or was apparently in a scandal.
Today, we're talking about McKinsey, the shadowy and parasitic consulting firm at the heart of nearly every industry in America. McKinsey claims to operate on a no-policy policy, free from a driving ideology or bias. But we tracked their history and broke down their worldview, and it places the consulting industry as secret agents in the war on working people. So what do consultants even do? Okay, but what do they actually do?
When I first applied and received an offer, I really had no idea what a BA does. The amazing thing is that what we do varies.
Communicate, present, model, plan, problem solve.
Be ambitious and find ways we can double our current rate of innovation.
No, but what do they actually do? I had to ask some experts to get a straight answer.
Well, in an ideal world, consultants add their brain power, to any company.
That was Mike Forsyth, a New York Times journalist and author of When McKinsey Comes to Town.
They come in as outsiders, look at a problem in a new way, and give good advice.
Consultants claim to help organizations solve problems that they would not be able to solve themselves.
This is Garrison Lovely, a former McKinsey employee turned whistleblower and journalist.
Whether that's entering a new market, reducing costs, helping a government achieve its mission better.
That's the idealized version. In the non-idealized version, the advice they give is bad advice, or the client they're working with is not a good actor.
So where did this lucrative problem-solving industry even come from? McKinsey was founded right after a period of historic corporate mergers. From 1895 to 1904, 1,800 companies were crunched into just 157 megacorporations. including some familiar ones like US Steel, Nabisco, General Electric, and AT&T. You might also remember what happened in 1929. So, in 1933, the government passed the Glass-Steagall Act, which stopped banks from speculation, which is basically gambling with the money regular people put in their bank accounts. But
it was basically preventing businesses from sharing information with each other about what they were doing, and so they couldn't standardize practices as much. Consultants were a way to get around this, where they would work for one company and figure out what they're doing, and do this for a bunch of different companies within the same industry, and help these companies behave more or less the same way and standardize.
In 1951, General Motors hired McKinsey to conduct the first ever study of executive compensation. The project was led by this guy, Arch Patton.
He noticed that laborers after World War II, their wages were rising faster than management, and went to companies and said, hey, did you know that your workers are actually getting raises more than you are? And they were shocked by this, and this pioneered the field of executive compensation consulting.
At the time of the study, the average CEO was paid about 20 times his typical worker's salary. Now, averages hit between 200 and 300, with some outliers approaching 2,000. Thanks, McKinsey!
They're management consultants. Since they were founded in the 1920s, they've been working with management. There is no equivalent McKinsey, for labor.
When it comes to labor, they've got one MO.
Layoffs.
If they're not laying people off, they're making other cuts and recommendations that totally hurt workers and consumers.
A very common thing is the CEO wants to enter a new market or lay off a bunch of people or close down some division. McKinsey will do a bunch of analysis, and they'll come up with all these clever seeming reasons why it makes sense to do the thing. And this is a way for the CEO or whoever else hired McKinsey to justify the decision.
In 2005, the average annual salary for a Walmart associate was roughly $17,500.
Its employee costs were going up because, associates, as Walmart calls them, were staying longer and longer and longer, but they didn't see a really big boost in productivity. So McKinsey came on board to help reduce healthcare expenses and to also try to trim benefits. And one of the findings and recommendations was to hire more part-time workers, because they don't have that burden of having all those benefits.
McKinsey also recommended that Walmart consider reducing its overall investment in profit sharing and 401k programs, lower its company-paid life insurance coverage, and move employees to consumer-driven health plans. Walmart wasn't the only client that used McKinsey to try and save money.
In the 1990s,
So there's a couple things that just happened that I just want to make sure we all are very aware about. One is productivity, which we hear about all the time, which I'm sure everybody already knows, but the measure of economic performance that compares the amount of goods and services produced, which is the output, with the amount of inputs, that's people, labor, that's what you pay for health insurance. It compares the output to the input used to produce those goods and costs and services, which is all of us, the working people. And it is so clear, obviously, that they're going to reduce people's hours, make them contract workers. Just recently, Walmart posted $5.10 billion of profit for Q1. But the average Walmart worker is paid less than a living wage, which means that they also, and we've talked about this so many times, have to rely on government assistance, which means that not only does the taxpayer pay tax incentives to bring a new Walmart to town, right? Because they always get some kind of assistance from, big business always gets assistance from the taxpayers because we're so thrilled that they're coming to town. Then they don't pay their workers enough. And so it's like double dipping in taxpayer money, because then those workers have to be able to eat. They can't afford it by working for Walmart. And so they are on SNAP programs or whatever it is, which, I mean.
But it's all part of the plan McKinsey puts in place.
Yes.
They outsource. When you make it a gig economy, when you make it so that you're working with part-time employees, they know the outcome of that. They know how much these employees are making. They're trying to maximize how they keep an employee for a short period of time so they don't progress into making higher wages and also don't get healthcare after becoming a permanent employee.
Right.
That's their model is the old guy at the front of the thing, the greeter that's 80, and kids that aren't going to stick around for this shitty job after about 2 years of it.
That's the whole deal. Very difficult to see, but so this is Melanie Dorigo, and she was running for Congress a couple years ago. I don't know if she still is, I think in New York. If you're wondering how Walmart gets away with paying poverty wages and getting taxpayers to subsidize their profits, let me introduce you to our broken campaign finance system where corporations can go shopping for the profitable policies they want. So at first, it was just little smidges of red. That's 1990 to 2000. Then that's donations, lobbying to Republicans. Then by 2006, 2008, it all spikes, but for both parties. And then 2020, even more Democrats were on the receiving end from Walmart, and now it's pretty much the same. I mean, our system is such a mess because they are allowed to, you don't have a monopoly and you can't fix bread prices or whatever prices. But if you are hiring the same consultant as your supposed rival, and that consultant's like, well, Pepsi's doing it this way, Coke, and Coke's like, okay, well then, right. So they have workarounds for the very meager regulations. And because of their donations, we're never going to have the regulations that are necessary to curb these monsters.
I see we have some shit people in the chat, but
yeah,
that's all right. I'm enjoying it. I'm sure a real Hassan Piker fan is lobbying, for capitalism. That really matches your MO. Is this McKinsey? Did McKinsey show up? Did they send some consultants? Good to see you guys. Yeah, that's you're wrong.
Hilarious. Yeah. Moping about and virtue signaling. What is that? Replacing revolutionary movement building is wait, sorry. I'm trying to read all these things fast enough because
that's not even aggressive. He's
I don't legitimize anything at the ballot box. I don't even know what you're talking about. Not voting for any of these people.
Yeah.
Lame.
You're really winning people over to your cause. Yeah. Tell Jimmy Dore to fuck off too. Yeah.
Became on board with Disneyland, and one of the areas they looked at was overhauling the maintenance program. And mind you have to keep in mind, this is a place that had a spotless record.
At that time, Disneyland had lots of mechanics maintaining rides. They made the rounds all day, tightening screws and bolts as needed and checking key safety features like lap bars.
So the idea, again, cut maintenance costs, move the maintenance crew to mostly work the graveyard shift at night.
The ride mechanic sent Disney multiple warnings of his safety concerns. McKinsey asked him why lap bars on a roller coaster were inspected daily when records showed they never failed. He replied, the reason they don't fail is because we check them every night. It's like a pilot saying, hey, we haven't crashed in a while, let's just skip the pre-flight. Disney never responded to his complaints and he was later fired. Not long after this, a child was seriously injured after falling out of a ride because of a lap bar issue. He never walked or talked again and died a few years later. Another serious accident occurred when an untrained supervisor docked a riverboat.
It's just extremely dangerous. You need to have very well-trained people to do this. Apparently the wood, in the dock was rotted and the whole cleat just shot out like shrapnel and wound up, killing one person and injuring somebody else.
And another person was killed when wheels failed on the Thunder Mountain roller coaster. The cited causes of all of these accidents were staffing and maintenance.
This is not the Disney that many people grew up with, and they all happened after McKinsey came on board.
But did McKinsey face any consequences for their bad advice?
McKinsey escapes accountability in a way because they are behind the scenes. It's all about secrecy, with them. Our advice is to you, and it's confidential. If you guys do great, wonderful, you take all the credit. If you screw up and things go bad, it's on you, it's not us.
If the project fails, the decision ends up being bad, it's like, well, clearly you hired the best consulting firm, so it must have been something else.
There's this symbiotic relationship between McKinsey and their clients. When something goes wrong, all McKinsey did was make recommendations, and all the client did was follow them.
Who wrote this? He did it!
It's a way to cover your ass, which is a very common expression in the business world.
This system is great for short-term profits and shareholders, but not so great if you care about jobs or safety. So what happens when you apply this mindset to the industries that we literally can't live without? That's when things start to get even darker.
Healthcare is pretty much McKinsey's bread and butter.
Bread prices.
Hospitals, for sure. Insurance companies, managed care companies, pharmaceutical companies. Top 5 McKinsey clients would be companies like Johnson & Johnson, and the big managed care insurance company, Anthem, Aetna, Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Let me say that again. McKinsey's biggest money earner is our healthcare system, and it's also where they've done some of the most damage. In 2018, McKinsey was contracted with the nonprofit hospital Providence Medical to design a program to get more patients to pay their medical bills.
Providence Hospital is a tax-exempt hospital. They're required to provide free care to poor people. And they were looking for any way to cut costs, and they turned to McKinsey to find a way to convince poor people to pay bills, even if in many cases they actually were not required to pay those bills.
McKinsey literally wrote a script for hospital staff to read to these patients. Staff were not allowed to take no for an answer and were told to take just $3 if that was all the patient had.
If they didn't pay, if they didn't get anything out of this, in some cases, they would refer it to a third-party debt collection agency. It would, destroy these people's credit rating.
And now Providence is being sued while McKinsey is once again not being held accountable, legally, financially, or otherwise. And while they're working for private sector clients, they're also working for the government agencies that are meant to be regulating them. 2 more McKinsey clients were Philip Morris and Juul.
McKinsey was also working for the FDA office that regulated tobacco. At the same time, they had these clients. And you see the reporting in our book that said that actually the people at the FDA did not know that McKinsey was advising the tobacco companies. And this is the same, with Juul. This is when the FDA was cracking down on these e-cigarettes. And pharma, the same thing. And most infamously, they're working for opioid makers, especially Purdue Pharma.
Conflicts of interest are the name of the game for McKinsey. They're like business-class mercenaries. They'll fight for any and every side that will pay them, and sometimes even ones that don't. In 1997, the state of Illinois was trying to reduce welfare spending. They needed help, and McKinsey generously offered their services for free.
One of the tricks McKinsey does, they will often come in and do pro bono work. And this is often a way just to kind of get in the door.
Once their foot was in the door, they were called back by some of the same state officials 20 years later to help, this time with restructuring Medicaid. And this time, it wouldn't be for free. Around the same time, Illinois hit some budget troubles. It was found that they were in about $1 million of debt to basic medical services while sending $75 million to McKinsey. It was also found that under McKinsey's project, the state was paying $63 billion to 7 private insurers, 4 of whom were also McKinsey clients. According to the Illinois comptroller, this taxpayer money was spent with less oversight than a purchase of paper clips. Like a vampire, McKinsey got themselves invited in with pro bono work, and now they were sucking Illinois dry.
They're on all sides of the food chain, in the healthcare industry, and there's just so much money there.
On their own website right now, McKinsey admits that healthcare in Illinois should be improved, specifically around opioid use. So cool that the solution to these problems they have actively helped create is bold collaborative action. It's like if someone came over to your house and used all your dishes and then was like, oh, according to my research, someone should probably do the dishes.
Dishes are done, man.
Once they sink their teeth into our governments, they stay for as long as they can. They make sure these agencies don't even remember a time before them.
You just end up relying on these people who are getting paid multiple times what a civil servant will be paid and aren't really accountable to the public in a serious way and may just come through for a few months at a time and then move on to something else. And so you don't build up this expertise and you just don't have this capacity to do things that states need to do.
They do all this while hiding behind the fact that they don't make the decisions.
This guy, Richard Elder, was like, look, we don't do policy, we just do execution. We're not here to make choices about what policies are good. All the values were about doing right by our clients, having an obligation to dissent, but that doesn't mean the dissent is going to go anywhere. just means you're not going to get fired for speaking out.
A former McKinsey employee told Michael that a manager would advise new recruits to wedge yourself in and spread like an amoeba. Once in, you should spread yourself in the organization and do everything. In other words, act like a Trojan horse. He was talking about their clients, but as we've seen, the McKinsey amoeba has wedged its way into every part of American life.
Okay, wait. So I just want to say a couple things. First of all, the Disney thing is so terrifying. When I was doing research and writing a biography, there was a woman who had just left Disney. She was the head of HR. And she said, and so this was 1999, their policy was nobody can die on Disneyland grounds. So somebody would have a heart attack, like not even, related to Disneyland, right? They would make sure before he was pronounced dead, he was taken off the grounds, which is insane. But I am one of those moms or people who's like, double check, like when the 14-year-old who's making $8 an hour comes by and like checks your safety on all those bars. Of course you shouldn't, rely on that person.
Yeah, don't go on carnival rides, just for the record.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that they are saving money on safety stuff, which we've seen now, obviously, and as everybody's talking about with Boeing, that is so crazy. And Pete Buttigieg was called out, and we can show this after, but by Rachel Maddow, of all people, in like 2019 or 2020 when he was running in the primary, because one of the places he worked for was a nonprofit health insurance company in Michigan advising them. And that nonprofit label is so deceptive because I guess all it means, but I think any hospital has to do this. If you come into the ER anyway, they just have to take care of you and then try to get money from you, right? But I mean, he worked for some of the worst people in the world, and liberals are still, they salivate over him. It's just unbelievable.
Just one small thing about Disneyland that I just saw recently.
Yeah.
So, consultants are always advising these people. Did you know that you'll see a lot of purples on like the roads and things at Disneyland? And the reason it's like that is that your eye adjusts eventually to that level of purple. And so when you look around at the greenery, it looks greener.
Shut up. Wow.
Like your eye literally changes how it reacts to the environment. So you think everything is like fresh and plush. Not that that's not evil necessarily.
It just shows how they're like, it's like the Truman Show. They're just like manipulating everything, right?
And that's the whole game with these guys. Is manipulation.
The health insurance stuff, and that, Wendell Potter, who I think he worked at Cigna, and then left the health insurance industry and was a big whistleblower, but he came out. I mean, Pete Buttigieg was so like widely loathed by everybody on the left, or even who has any scruples or morals or anything, but made it very clear that he thought that it was a healthcare insurance industry like Blue Cross Blue Shield that Pete Buttigieg has been working for. And I love that he's like, no, we didn't make any decisions, was exactly what they're saying, right? Like, we didn't make any decisions. We just advised them on policy. But the advice is always cost cutting. Like when they say they don't have any policy, that's their way of extricating themselves from any like moral, compulsion to do something good. Their policy is capitalism, like just unbridled, unfettered, make as much money as possible off the backs of whoever did that. So they can work for a Chinese arms company at the same time they work for Putin, at the same time they work for the US. Like none of it matters. It's all just money.
They had a 188-page document on how businesses should react to COVID. So a lot of their businesses getting back to work, it's based on some of this McKinsey stuff. And I read through it as much as I could. I skimmed all 188 pages. And it's just corporate speak, but it's basically like, ways to keep people happy in an unsafe environment is the moral of the whole document.
Yeah. There was a whole thing also, because we both got this 188 page document like 2 or 3 days ago, and we're looking through it, and it's always about the economy. There's a little bit like of a nod to how people are feeling, but I thought this was just so funny. Wait, was it in this one? It might have been in the other one. Oh no, it was all about people finding purpose. So, be good to them. I don't know. The other one didn't come through, but it was also like, see how people are feeling. And then in parentheses, it was like, and you should ask them. Like, these people are such automatons about like, how do we make the most money? How do we make money? It's like, yeah, like interact and ask people, how are you feeling? And this was written like in March of 2020 at the very beginning. Like everybody was terrified, right? We didn't know what was happening. If you touched it, if it was fomite, if it was airborne, like nobody knew, it was everywhere. And to have to say to somebody like, hey, just take a moment and reach out. It's like really next level. Like chips are missing in all of these people.
I hated the consultants that came in, but this is sort of a tangent. I'm sorry, but I just feel like I have to tell it. I was a sales consultant taking sales calls for internet over the phone. And my boss, they used to have employees come sit with you to learn the job. And this was before my company became evil. And the person comes down, sits with me. They're listening to the calls, and I'm talking to them about the calls. And I'm like, the company says you're supposed to do it this way. It's all bullshit. Do it this way. The company says do it this way. And I just kept doing that the whole time. And it turns out that was the vice president of the company. They sat with me. And I was like, I'm going to get fired. But in fact, it fast tracked me to move up in the company because she was like, this is stuff I've never heard because no one's ever fucking honest with me.
Wow.
So it's like,
that's interesting.
These people at the top live in a little bubble where they just fluff each other daily.
Yeah.
And they find reasons to justify their jobs and expenses. And
God, that feels like the movie version of it. Like, because what I think the real version of it is what they do to the Boeing whistleblowers, which is like they keep demoting them or, pushing them off onto side jobs until they finally quit. And then they suicide them later. But she actually did like we all grew up in the movie version of that, which is like, hey, you've got the gumption to tell me the truth and I love you, kid.
Well, I had that for a minute, but then this company morphed into an evil company and I was in a sales manager role where it became exactly that. They were putting policies in place to make people want to quit. Like it was unsustainable to be an employee. Like if I actually did what I was supposed to do, none of my employees would have had jobs a month later. And I held on for 2 years knowing that they were trying to fire people. And, but they just turned flat evil. And I'm sure McKinsey was probably a consultant with them,
Yeah. I'm sure that's their whole deal is get rid of people, like get rid of people.
Yeah.
All right. We're almost done.
What should we do about it? Well, the DOJ is investigating their work on opioids criminally for the first time. And some politicians have even talked about banning McKinsey from federal contracts. But most of these problems aren't even unique to McKinsey. If we just banned one consulting firm from federal contracts, the others would likely just fill in the gaps.
The reality is there are companies called Bain and Boston Consulting Group and Deloitte and Accenture, and they are offering kind of the same product. And I don't think that the results would be that different.
Ultimately, we need to untangle the dependency on consulting McKinsey has fostered in our government.
Things are set up in such a way where if you just cut off the consulting firms, I don't think you can build up that capacity overnight. This is like a kind of a generational long project. And I think that requires, governments paying people more and creating workplaces that are more appealing, as well as just a philosophical change of public-private partnerships are not the default best way to go, and government should actually learn how to do things well. Again, we've done it before.
And what about the army of young MBA grads ready to keep the consulting industry marching on for another 100 years?
I would tell them that these organizations will promise you that you can do work that is exciting and prestigious and improves the world with smart people that pays well. You can have it all. And I would just tell them that that's not true. I think I'm really much happier than the cohort of people that I worked with at McKinsey, even though I make so much less money than them. And my life and career is less stable and predictable. But you have privilege by being in this position, and you have some kind of opportunity and I think to some extent an obligation to use that to actually make the world a better place. And I think you will end up being happier for it.
The idea that you can hire somebody who has no expertise in the field is such a, like, first of all, it's so insulting. And like, we talked about this about Boeing a couple months ago when all of these things first started happening, that the people that they were promoting weren't engineers. They had no expertise in the field. Their only expertise was cost cutting, like how to save money and do corporate buybacks, I don't know. It's such a, I'm not sure exactly what to do. Guys, I just think we should not engage if you don't want to, and
with the trolls.
Yeah.
I don't want to block them, but just block them yourself. I mean, I think that's the way, honestly.
Yeah. But like the other thing that's so interesting is it takes time. There used to be pride in somebody moving up through a company, like working really hard, feeling like they had some ownership over it, and moving up and becoming even maybe the CEO or whatever they used to call it, the head of a company. And now they almost never promote to that level within their own company, which really is, instructive about what they think about the people working for them.
Yeah, look, upper management is the good old boys club. It's friends of friends. And like, even at Earthlink, where I started, that I could have maybe moved up, but they waved that in front of you forever. I was on this fast track. But what happened with that company is it grew from a small business. So friends of friends are in the roles of like, you're now the head of product production or something. These are people that just didn't know shit. And they got an idea that blew up. So it's always incompetent people at the top when these organizations split. And eventually they might get replaced by somebody with some competence, or they might get McKinsey consultants coming in and just, friends of friends get slotted, because the consultant recommends a list of people or something,
Yeah.
But it's a lot of nonsense. So like, never respect somebody just because they have a high position.
No.
Most of these people are the least qualified people for the positions.
Yeah. And they're making up new titles just to justify why those people get more money. It's not cost saving. What it is doing is ensuring that everybody in the top echelons, they're all on the same page, that it's all just about profit. And that is it, because I remember in 2020 when Bernie would like go have these town halls and talk to people like at Starbucks and ask them like, do you think you're going to grow old with this company? And the whole thing, it used to be that was a point of pride for businesses, but what they want to do is make everybody part-time and make sure that they don't have any longevity with the company, because they want like right now when people are like young people decided for the first time in a really long time, no, we're going to stay and unionize as opposed to quitting when we hate the job. Because if you keep quitting, you're actually kind of giving them what they want on some level.
You are, but at the same time, it's like loyalty is punished in business now, right? If you're loyal, there's stats on the wages. Like people that leave a job in 1.5 to 2 years versus people that stay for 10 are making twice as much money as the person that stays at the business.
Yeah.
So and there's no reward, that's just the society we're in right now. That's where we are. So,
well, it's like with the nurses, like the traveling nurses, they get so much more money than the nurses who are permanent employees of a hospital. They come in, they get to be there just for a couple of weeks. I think they know they're not going to organize. They're not going to change anything like the higher ups, right? They're just going to come into a job and leave. You're not paying them benefits, but you might pay them more hourly for that short amount of time. And it causes a lot of friction between your different ranks of employees. Like it is a way of keeping everybody angry and separated and nobody invested in actually ameliorating the company.
Yeah. Well, so should we look at some of the health insurance stuff McKinsey did?
Yeah.
Wendell Potter, who's out there fighting for Medicare for all, strong vocal advocate,
and he was the whistleblower from Cigna. Yeah. Whistleblower from Cigna, I think, was his health insurance company. When I was a health insurance exec, my CFO had McKinsey on retainer every year or so, especially when one division or another wasn't making enough profit. McKinsey would be brought in to assess current operations, Those of us who knew about McKinsey's involvement at our insurance corporation knew it would lead to cost cutting. That's consultant talk for laying off workers, offshoring, and hiking rates. The McKinsey efforts would have code names because it had to be kept a secret. So this is just amazing to me. This is Pete Buttigieg. I don't know. This might be the last real question that Rachel Maddow ever asked a Democrat, but making an excuse for why it's important not to get rid of the health insurance industry. This is in 2020.
When you did that sort of cost and overhead assessment for Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan, a couple of years after that, they laid off like 1,000 people. Was your work part of what led to those layoffs?
I doubt it. I don't know what happened in the time after I left. That was in 2007 when they decided to shrink in 2009. Now, what I do know is that there are some voices in the Democratic primary right now who are calling for a policy that would eliminate the job of every single American working at every single insurance company in the country.
Imagine.
That's such a lie. You don't say, I doubt it.
Right.
You say, no, I didn't recommend layoffs.
Yeah.
So no,
Yeah.
it couldn't be my policy.
Right.
If you didn't recommend layoffs, that's all he has to say. He's
Right.
like, no, I didn't recommend layoffs.
Right. Or refusing medical treatment, which is
Right.
the biggest way they make money. But then his concern at the end is a dig at Bernie Sanders and Medicare for All, because Medicare for All would get rid of the need for a health insurance industry. And he's saying, well, that would be thousands of jobs that would be lost. You don't want to lose those jobs.
And what it would be McKinsey losing jobs because they're not going to get called in for cost savings because their only cost savings are on the labor. It's always the labor with
Right.
McKinsey.
Yeah. Yeah. He's just so vile. But I did love that. And there was it's a slightly longer clip, but it was, what's his name? Benjamin, what's his name? His whole
The
name.
New York Times clip?
Yeah. Benjamin Applebaum. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think the important part about this is strangely, the New York Times interviewed all the presidential candidates.
Yeah.
And Bernie got the win out of it all. He had the best, he fought back against these guys.
Yeah.
But they were hard on everybody. And it was a rare moment.
Before they double endorsed Amy Klobuchar and Elizabeth Warren. Remember?
I forgot it was Klobuchar. Yeah, they endorsed Warren and Klobuchar,
Yeah.
who both were terrible.
Terrible.
Obviously.
But this again was something we all know it's repellent. And I think when it was coming to the forefront, because McKinsey likes to be sort of in the background as they rake in their, billions of dollars. But because of Pete Buttigieg's candidacy,
he hurt McKinsey a lot.
Yeah, he kind of outed them. Yeah.
Right.
So this guy who's he works at the New York Times, this neoliberal, establishment, legacy media, corporate, whatever, still was disgusted when he was talking to Pete Buttigieg. So this is just a quick thing.
You've been on the front lines of corporate downsizing. You've been on the front lines of corporate price fixing. You've been on the front lines of our misadventures.
I'm sorry,
of our misadventures in foreign policy. You've had direct experience of many of the things that make a lot of young people very angry about the way that this country is operating right now. You don't seem to embody that anger.
So the proposition that I've been on the front lines of corporate price fixing is just to get that out of the way.
You worked for a company that was fixing bread prices.
No, I worked for a consulting company that had a client that may have been involved in fixing, or was apparently in a scandal. I was not aware of the Canadian bread pricing scandal until last night.
I mean, come on. God, he is just so slimy. He just is awful.
Yeah. You were involved in bread fixing. No, I worked for a company that until last night, I didn't know was involved in fixing. I mean, something other, replace that word. I'm not supposed to use that word. Dude, so obvious. He took it in the chin on that one hard.
Yeah.
And I loved it for it.
That's funny. Exactly. Yeah. As a fellow kid. Hello, fellow kids. He's just awful. Yeah. Okay. Did we have anything more about, the other thing? I mean, it's just so gross. They also advised how to save money with ICE. And they even made career ICE workers feel uncomfortable, which has to be some level of, unlock some new level of success to make those people feel uncomfortable. They propose cuts, McKinsey, in spending on food for migrants, as well as on medical care and supervision of detainees. I mean, like, every time you think that there's like an evil level, they wanted to give refunds. They proposed that for the pharmacies that were giving out OxyContin after McKinsey, who was also working for Purdue, the Sackler family, and trying to incentivize doctors to give out more and more OxyContin prescriptions, even knowing that we were already in crisis and people were going to overdose and die, that for the people who overdosed and died, the pharmacies that were filling those prescriptions would get rebates. I mean, like, they're working every single angle, and each one ups the vile.
Well, the fact that, the insurance claim system, we probably owe to McKinsey, because you have this adjuster claims person in the middle that denies claims, and it's more cost effective. If anything is more cost effective, you can probably put that on McKinsey.
Right.
So it's more cost effective to get sued and pay out than to pay for these claims.
Yeah.
To lose a lawsuit, even you're going to lose these lawsuits and we're going to settle them, but there's a cap on how much you can sue the government. I mean, the hospitals for even fraudulently, knowingly rejecting a valid claim. There's a cap on it. I think it's like $250,000.
Yeah.
I might have made that up. I
don't know what it is, but listen, every single day we see that that people are denied life-saving claims. So, I think a lot of liberals especially don't see that the same as putting a gun to someone's head and pulling the trigger, but like, that's social murder. You deny somebody a life-saving medicine or procedure, they're as good as dead because you decided to save your company some money. And I feel like that should meet the same level of retribution as murder.
Right. Absolutely. And what can't really be quantified and put in front of people is the number of hoops that have been created in this system, which are built specifically to deny claims that are valid. So you have to go through layers and layers and layers of problematic stuff to get to just, can I have my basic fucking generic drug that I can afford?
And they count on that exhaustion for you just to give up and be like, whatever.
That system is built in. So McKinsey probably got hired by, some of these hospitals and insurance providers. And, how do we cut costs? Well, make sure the costs are valid by ensuring that customers do this process. And that process has built in,
like, dotting the T's or dotting the I's and crossing the T's. And if you miss one of those things, they can deny that claim.
Right.
And a lot of it's being done by AI now. So, I mean, not even like a claims adjuster who has no medical expertise, but just an automated algorithm can deny a claim for you. And again, sometimes if you fight it and you go through all of those hoops, if you have the time and the energy.
Which is why you should, because
if you can,
the system is designed to make it frustrating. So if you persist, you can probably win a lot of these things. It's just who's going to persist. People are dying of cancer. They're getting care by their friends and family who don't know the system, don't have access to all the information as the main person too. It's just hoop after hoop. But I think kudos to John Oliver, who sometimes is a great progressive. Sometimes he's a little shit lady.
Yeah.
But Lila pulled a small clip from he did a long piece on McKinsey.
And it was really good. It was like 28 minutes and it was like from 7 months ago. So
John Oliver here.
McKinsey's government clients also include regulators, which can get a little weird when you consider that McKinsey also represents corporate clients. For instance, remember how it worked with Purdue Pharma? While it was working for them, it was also working with the FDA. That sure seems like a clear conflict of interest, and it was one that even Mr. Positive and Enduring Change here found a little hard to explain to Congress after the fact.
Okay, so let me ask you, did you disclose to the FDA your McKinsey's work at the same time? Did you disclose to the FDA that McKinsey was working at the same time it was working for the FDA, that it was working for Purdue? Did you disclose that to the FDA?
We made clear in multiple instances that the individuals involved had experience in both pharmaceuticals and opioids.
Reclaiming my time. Mr. Sternfels, they didn't have experience. They were the identical humans working for both at the same time.
Exactly. And there is a big difference between having experience working for both and actively working for both at the same time. It's the same difference between telling your wife about your ex-girlfriend and telling your wife about your current girlfriend. One is dramatically worse than the other. And Katie Porter was right there. There were multiple instances of McKinsey consultants working for both Purdue and the FDA at the same time. At one point, 4 consultants working on an FDA contract to enhance drug safety were simultaneously working for Purdue on projects designed to persuade the FDA of the safety of Purdue's product.
God, it's so disgusting. So disgusting. I'm seeing a few different comments. I just wanted to say, I think it was Mike earlier asked 2 questions. One is, where's our wheel? Which we don't do on Sundays. I'm so sorry. And I saw Daniel just asked if we don't do shots on Sundays, to which I just want to, right away call an audible. Sorry, I'm always, if you fail to prepare to fail.
I prepared to fail because I don't have shots here. So just move on with your thing and I'll grab some shots, whatever you got.
I'll do one for you. Here we go. Cheers.
Okay, while I get my shot, maybe we can show the little. So Oliver did a parody also after this. And,
yeah, but this one we should probably share because this one they're going to ding us for copyright, I think, if we don't put it on the screen with us, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Don't you? Why do you look at me like that's crazy?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I'm just concerned with getting my shot. So let's.
Okay.
Let's
you go get a shot, and I'll play it. Fair usage because we're watching.
Hi there. Here at McKinsey, we're an elite group of strategists, thinkers, analysts, innovators, guys named Braden, and Delta Platinum Sky Miles reward members, here to drive client success in any business venture. We're proud to say McKinsey alums include many of the most powerful people on Earth. And also, Pete Buttigieg.
We at McKinsey genuinely believe great consultants can come from anywhere. That's why our workforce features an incredibly diverse array of graduates from all over the Ivy League, even Cornell.
So if you're an ambitious college senior or an MBA graduate who needs to be told you're special or you will die, we'd like you to consider a career at McKinsey.
The best part of my Harvard education was the look on people's faces when I said, I go to Harvard. I'm really passionate about belonging into groups that impress people, and so to be able to continue that at McKinsey has been very fulfilling.
One of the interview questions I was asked in my final round was, how much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? Sounds like a silly question, but it's actually a smart way to test your approach to problems and how many billable hours you can talk for. In my case, a lot.
Here at McKinsey, you'll have the opportunity to change the world by serving a surprisingly wide array of clients.
But not just anyone. For instance, we proudly don't work for tobacco clients and haven't since the start of this sentence.
We've got clients that appeal to every interest, local interests, foreign interests, and even conflicts of interest.
I worked for the FDA and Purdue Pharma at the same time. I can't believe I was allowed to do that. My mom did say, shouldn't that be illegal? And that made me really worried until I remembered she's not a consultant. Of course she wouldn't understand. I was basically talking to an ape.
We hold our employees and our clients to a higher personal and ethical standard. Core McKinsey values will always lead us.
Sorry, do you have a phone call?
Not now.
It's the Saudis?
Actually, I do have to take this. I think it might be about the thing. You've got Braden B.
But the point is, you'll be using your big, special, early 20s brain,
Fair use,
unencumbered by
fair use.
practical experience, to develop bespoke, tailored solutions to address companies' specific needs.
What we're recommending is finding significant efficiencies by laying off the people at the bottom of the company and paying more to the people at the top.
Hey, that's me. Yes. With the money signs?
Yes.
It's me at the top.
Okay.
Look, we believe there are 3 great institutions left in the world: the Marines, the Catholic Church, and McKinsey.
That's because the mark of any good institution is matching outfits, evasion of responsibility through institutional secrecy, and the misplaced belief that you're saving the world. Because at the end of the day, we're McKinsey.
We're McKinsey.
We're McKinsey.
Well, McKinsey.
And we're capable of anything.
And culpable for nothing.
I love that line.
I mean, it's true. We can't, they can't touch us.
It's true.
Okay. The crazy thing about that is it's not even parody. Like, they almost were talking exactly from the script of that 188-page document that you're like, I mean, working for the FDA at the same time that you're supposed to be regulating Juul and tobacco and OxyContin, like all of that is true. Like it wasn't far-fetched. It's all just so outlandishly evil.
It's all intertwined, and confidentiality agreements prevent like so much of the whistleblower of what these people are actually saying.
Josh,
like,
I mean, Josh, I just called you Josh. I think we were just disconnected.
what?
They shut us down. Everybody's saying, whoa, okay, wait a second. We're
You're right.
back.
We still have an audience, right? Can you not see us? Can you people hear?
We're all saying what happened. 1 second. So I think we have to like leave and start it again.
Really? We have to do that now? It says we're live, but we're not actually on.
1 sec. Part 2 on its way. Okay, I'm gonna start a new one and just invite you.
It'll be the same link for us, right? Yeah. All right.
Will it?
Or no, it'll be what?
I think I have to do a new one. Okay, I'm leaving.